We continue with our videos, and in this one we are going to learn how to visualize if there is a relationship between two variables. So here we have three data sets in which we have relationships or possible relationships between two variables. Here, for instance, we have 20 observations, okay, and we have the X observation and the Y observation, okay. So first of all, just by looking at this data, right, it's very difficult to identify if there is any relationship between these two variables. So we are going to learn how to visually at least identify if there is potentially one. Later on, when we do linear regression, then we're going to learn actually how to statistically decide if there is a relationship between these two variables. Anyway, so this is a data set, right, for these observations and these two variables x and y. Over here, we have a different data set. Here, the elements are the NFL teams, okay, and the variables that we have is the revenue that each one of teams is each one of these teams produces, and then the value of the team in millions of dollars. Okay, so do you think if there is a relationship between the revenue that the teams produce and the value of the team in millions? Well, we'll see, right? We'll see visually if there is such a relationship. Now here, I have another data set, right? This the elements are companies, right? In the U.S. stock market, okay. Now they are ranked in the in terms of the popularity of these brands. So, for instance, Apple is the number one most recognizable brand in the stock market, and the return of the company in the last year. And by the way, this was done a few years ago. So the return of the stock in that year was 14.8%. So the question here is there a relationship between the rank of the company in terms of popularity and the return of the stock for that company in the stock market? Well, we'll see. So the way we are going to identify if there is a relationship is by plotting these points, right? This is going to be an order pair. So the x coordinate is going to be negative 22 and the y coordinate is going to be positive 22. And the same for this order pair. The x value is going to be negative 33 and the y value is going to be 49, and so on. And we will be able to visualize if there is a relationship between these two variables. So in order to do that in Excel, what we're going to do is going to select the data, okay, and then we're going to go to Insert, and then this scatter plot. So we're going to click here, okay, and we're going to select the first option, the scatter plot, and we get this. Okay, so now maybe there is a relationship between these two variables, right? So it seems that as the y variable, as the x variable increases, the y variable decreases, right? Here, right, the x variable is increasing, right? And at the same time, the y variable is decreasing. Okay, to emphasize such a relationship, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, okay, and then I'm going to add a trend line. So if I select this, I'm going to add a trend line. Okay, I'm going to just close this menu, and you see here the trend line. Okay, and the trend line is consistent with this pattern that we observed, that as the x variable increases, the y variable decreases. So we will call this type of relationship a negative relationship, because as one variable increases, the other decreases. Okay, now notice that here in this relationship, the dots are not really very closely following the line, right? You have some variation. Okay, so although there is some kind of relationship, the relationship doesn't seem to be that strong. Okay, very good. So now let's move to the next data set. So we do the same. We select the data. We go to the menu, Insert, Scatter Plot, and we pick the first option. Now, look at this. Right now, if I insert the trend line, there you go. So now it looks so much closer than the previous one, right? Maybe let me zoom in. So I'm gonna start at 200 instead of 0. Okay, very good. So it looks better, right? So we see that now there seems to be a relationship, right? Because as the x variable, which in this case is the revenue, right, increases, the value of the team actually increases. And you can see that the dots are pretty close to the line. So we can see that this is a positive relationship, and it's actually a very strong relationship, right? Because the dots are pretty close to the line. There is some variation, like that this one, or this one, or this one, or maybe this one, right? But in general, they are close to the line. So here we have a negative relationship, and the relationship is not that strong. And here we have a positive relationship, and the relationship seems to be very strong. All right, let's move to the next data set. Okay, so here we're going to use rank versus return. Rank versus return. What happens? What happened? I don't know what happened again. Rank versus return. Let me do it with the mouse. Rank versus return. Okay, and I'm going to do the same. Insert, scatter plot, first option, and now I see the relationship here. So here, right, doesn't seem to be any relationship, right? Because as the rank increases, we have points all over the place. So if I were to add a trend line here by right-clicking and adding the trend line, right, we see that pretty much there is no relationship, right? This line is a horizontal line. So again, recapitulating, right, we can have negative relationships, positive relationships, or no relationships, right? And then the strength of the relationship is measured by how close these dots are from the trend line. Here we have a negative relationship which is not that strong. Here we have a positive relationship which is very strong, and here we have no relationship at all. Okay, so this is a very simple and useful way in order to identify if there are relationships between two variables. We're going to go deeper into this when we study linear regressions. But for the time being, we're going to stop here. Thank you very much.